Now that is divine. That's a little bit of a cinnamon and orange tea going on, and I decided to mix it with a kiwi lemon lion's mane mushroom. Blend it together, put it in, shake it up. Everybody get out on the floor. It can get a little crazy. And that is what brings us to Late Night Music Theory with your host, me. Hey. But speaking of crazy, I am here to give to you somebody who I feel as though can write a song down. They can give it to us and deliver it to us in a way that we can't even comprehend. But when listening to it, you start to think to yourself, well, hey, this eats. I can imagine every single thing about it, and I am being put in the flames just as you were, down to the T. But it will never be comparable to actually being put through it. And to that I say, you can't put chains on me. But you know what you can experience in life? A control freak. A controller that thinks they can just put you around, put you in a box, keep you there, look at you when you're pretty, and not look at you when you're not. Walk away, do something else, and think you'll be okay with anything. We're talking about Master, debut album, Mariah the Scientist, guys. Now, she is going to give us the imagery that we've always needed without knowing that we needed this, giving us the metaphors, the similes, the unconventional comparisons, filling in that gap, that void, that presence of the anguish that I mentioned earlier in her feeling. And that's real, that's valid. Let's get into those experiences and let's get into the album. Now you may be asking yourself, well, we haven't seen the cover art. We need to know what it looks like so we can get in and break down the image. Talk about it a little bit more. You are as astute as ever. Here's the image. You see it? You see it? You're taking it in? All right, now. So, as we mentioned, this person is being controlled, put in a box, being confined, living in the anguish of what that whole ordeal is coming with. And with that, setting the visual tone of this album before we even get into any music, we open up with the first track, Note to Self. Now, in Note to Self, we get an adjacent feeling to A Moment of Silence. And that is my computer taking off, letting us know that let's actually get into this. We start off with A Moment of Silence adjacent. No words, kind of. No words yet that we can pick up on. It sounds as though a tape is being ran through or being played in the beginning stages before it's actually going off. And we get those as it builds up because that's at the start of the song. And it goes on like this from the start of the song to the 14-second mark. And it slowly ramps up and builds into distant, far off, echoed words in the background that you can hear but not fully be able to make up. And I took that as either going back into the cortex of the brain and thinking of all the memories and events that brought us to this one moment, almost as if we're in a trance or overthinking everything and it's taking us out of our present version. Astral projecting. Maybe. Can you astral project? I don't know. I kind of think that that would be scary. But is it scary because it's unknown? Or is it actually scary because you've already experienced it and what that moment gave you was something of a fright? I may never know that. I'll report back to you if I ever find out. But if I find out, trust and believe that will be an out of body moment. I may come back like this. And still I rise. But back to, as it builds up, and like I was saying, feeling like distant echoes, remnants of what is bringing us to the current situation, feeling as though we're overthinking or we're in our subconscious, anything that's pulling us out of our present version, the bass comes in. At that 14-second mark, we get a loud thud. And it pulls us back out, not only listening to it, but as the music progresses, because that's when words come into play. That's when the chorus starts. That's when the song picks up and you actually hear from the artist. And we start off by spelling out self destructive and stating, I need help. I've always been SELFDESTRUCTIVE. Can't you tell? Now, I'm thinking of this, right? You know, we're the listener. We're devoid from this experience, but at the end of the day, there's still feeling there. There's still, well, hey girl, hey. Even though I'm all the way over here, in those moments where you were showing these negative tendencies, these self destructive behaviors, and also in that same breath asking for help, saying, if you were paying attention to me enough, you would have seen these signs. You could have prevented this. But had I also had your reassurance, I could have worked on preventing this. Do you see where I'm getting with this? The lack of care and attention, really treating me like a shiny object, putting me on a shelf and watching me collect dust. Except you don't even care enough to watch that dust form. And you just go about your day, off into another room, and ultimately forget about me. Don't you forget about me. Don't. And that is what's coming. That is what is bringing us to these moments of these self and negative tendencies. And that also can come into the feeling of the song that I believe is feeling as though we're listening to a cassette tape, a videotape, if you will, but it has been damaged. It has been neglected. Almost that feeling of whenever you're putting in a tape in a TV or listening to music on a tape or whatever, and you have those moments where when you're rewinding, when you're playing it back, long-term storage, the tape messes up. It glitches, but that's a little bit too off in the future to get to that verbiage. It's getting scrambled and it's getting weird. But those moments where it's getting scrambled and it's not quite playing the full scenario. It's stopping on these certain instances in moments that is messing the tape up itself. But also, if we think about it, the tape being the relationship, these moments that are stopping the relationship, putting it at a hole, being like, hey, this is where I messed up, or this is where you messed up. This is a red flag that I saw. This was a negative behavior that I presented. This was something that we looked past that we should have actually revisited and put a pin in. All these moments are coming together, and that frustration that you feel whenever the tape skips, whenever the tape scrambles, and are trying to get it back on track, is that underlying frustration. And in the song Hurt, that she is conveying and trying to figure out, well, what is going on here that makes me feel this way, that put me in this moment, made me present in this light. As we go into it even more, we get the first and only verse, because mind you, this song is short. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say that. This song is short, but it's impactful. It's short, but it's giving intense imagery. It's short, and it gives us the verse that says, and they talking about love, what is it? Didn't know it existed. Now they telling me it's within myself. But baby, what is love? A figment. Tell me, am I imagining this? Thinking of all the lies I tell myself. I've always been SELFDESTRUCTIVE. I need help. I need help. And if you bothered and cared to feel what I was feeling, then maybe we wouldn't be here. Maybe we would be in a better place. Because maybe I don't know what love is. And that is heartbreaking to hear. Questioning love. Questioning love in this romantic sense of this relationship putting you in those moments of being, is love even real? Was this all something in my head? Was it all just fairy tales? Was it something that was constantly being advertised to me, but never something that is achievable in this reality to the degree that I have been cultured to believe? Who knows? It could also be in the fact that not only is it something advertised but never seen in reality, I don't have a romantic relationship that can or has shown signs of being sustainable, healthy in any point to compare it to what this is. Therefore, thinking that even though this is a bad relationship, I don't have a good relationship to tell me that this is a bad relationship. I just know that this is making me feel this type of way. And with this history of hurt, that makes me believe that all this is fake. Was what I was yearning for, pining for, even real in the first place if I have yet to experience it so far? Something's got to give, and yet nothing has. So is this all a figment? As the song concludes, once we hit the 1 minute and 41 second mark, Note to Self starts to fade out, almost as if preparing for the transition for the next track. But as it goes back out into the distance, similarly to how it started off, with it being murmurs and building up into the song, it's constantly repeating self-destructive. And that is shifting and bringing into louder production as the self-destructive calls and pleads are getting snuffed out, almost as if the care that was given to me, or much better, the lack of care that was given to me during my calls and pleads are being replicated in this song, having that similar feeling, or at least giving us, the listener, the feeling to being ignored, being neglected. Because as that production is getting louder, the pleas are going down. They're getting snuffed out, as I was saying. And it brings us into the shift in sound of that song, going from a damaged tape recording to a more eerie and mystical sound. And that brings us to In My Nightmares. And just how we started off the album so far, being in a trance, being in our subconscious, then being pulled out of it, talking about our negative tendencies. We then fall back into that trance with this song. And the production of it is feeding into that mysticism, into that trance. And I am going on a limb to tell you that I think that that's being representative of a deeper state of mind being pushed through. At first, we were overthinking things. At first, it was we're in our heads. But as we're going into it, going into and exploring that mysticism, it could be okay, now I'm fully in my bubble. I'm fully in my shell and I'm fully doing the work that I need to do to get to the bottom of these feelings and being reflective on what happened. And we set the tone with all of that when she goes into saying, I see you in my dreams when I'm fast asleep tonight. Distant memories of the days and the nights you didn't treat me right. Is it the energy or is it the tears I cry? Always in between you and me, I guess I'm sick and tired. We're going to parse that off, divide it in half, because we're going to get to that later half later on. But right now, we're here to focus on the dreaming part, the distant memories of you not treating me right. Now, we could lump the whole thing as her asking the whys to her exposed vulnerability, as we were mentioning before, with trying to go back and go through the memories as to what led us to this moment. And by doing so, she is opening up to what she either thinks is the problem. And when trying to identify sought out problems, sometimes you end up making up problems, things that weren't there, or because it's you being too critical of yourself when pointing out problems that also weren't even there. And so she's further exposing herself to, like we mentioned before, a man that didn't even care about her in the beginning, somebody that just wanted to control her. So she's ripping her heart out, trying to figure out, was it this? 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 Is this the reason why? Is this the reason why? He's not even looking in her direction to see that she just ripped her heart out to try and fix, piece back together what really happened. Now, if that don't make you furious, I don't know what will. It's sad. It's sad because we feel like if you can't go to Bella Noche's, then where the hell could you go? But by looking at it a bit deeper and sitting with just those few lyrics, you start to wonder and ask yourself, okay, even though it is being clear by just track two that you're being neglected, you're not being cared for, this person is not really in it, as we've been discussing across projects. Why are you giving him the shadow of the doubt? Why are you pulling up excuses for him? Now, I get it. I get it. We're in love. Maybe this is the wrong love. Maybe this is skewed love, but we're in love. However, what is it that is allowing you to not be able to bring accountability to him? But in doing so, you're blaming yourself for this. Real, valid. Let's not do that again, though, because you are T. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But why is she blaming herself? Why is she allowing herself to not only be the problem in the relationship when that's not the full truth, but also giving him a way out in saying, no, it's not that I neglected you. It's the fact that you were sick. Your energy was off. You weren't in the right headspace. Why are we doing this? Why are we giving these reasonings to a man? Do you get what I'm saying? Be accountable. Be in that notion and headspace of saying, no, this is where you got me messed up because you did X, Y, and Z. And maybe it takes two to tango, because it does. However, comma, I was neglected. I wasn't cared for. And when I was the one that was trying to put it all back together, where were you? You were in another room kicking it with somebody else. And we'll get into those moments later on. But you were kicking it with somebody else. Well, I was here. I was in the trenches. I was here for you, fighting for you, being for you, locking myself for you. I, in fact, put myself in the cage and threw away the key for you to come back to me. And you were with somebody else. I kill you. In the game, I kill you in the game. Now, outside of those moments in empathy that I shared, and if you also listen to this, maybe you shared too, one thing that I will note is, does that all go back towards those self-destructive tendencies that we kicked off the album with by always giving excuses for the person that's doing you the harm, putting yourself on the back burner, while also blaming yourself for things that are out of your control? Now, I would take that as self-destructive. I would take that as, girl, you need to wake up and see who you are and smell them roses. And not have on them rose tinted glasses, girl. Take them things off. Because at this point, it's not even rose tinted glasses. It is scarlet glasses. That's what it is. It's scarlet glasses. It's in fact got the Scarlet Witch enchantment all around the lenses, in making the dirtiest looking thing look not just like a rose, but it looks like one of the seven wonders of the world. And the seven wonders of the world aren't even that much to look at, but you know, it got you thinking, wow, This really is something to wonder about. I love it. Girl, no, you don't. Wake up. Now, a few other things to point out is this chorus with her saying, "Do you hear my prayers? I see him in my nightmares." Now, to think about that some more, it really pulls and ties everything together in answering and filling in those long awaited gaps, if you will, metaphorically. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Now, I could take the whys behind giving them the excuses, but while it's also giving excuses, it's internal. I'm asking myself, was it my energy? Is it me crying? Am I the sick and tired one? Am I what's going on with this? Please answer these questions. Do you hear my prayers? But the reality of what's happening, the reality of the neglect, is the reality that she is being put in and having to deal with. In a way, this reality of what's actually going on is answering the prayers, talking to the universe, saying, if this was the wrong move, if I need to leave, give me a sign. Here's the sign. Universe, I didn't see that. If there is any sign that you could give me to leave and exit this, please give it to me. Here's a sign. Universe, give me a sign. And that is the sign. I see him in my nightmares. The anguish that this is putting me through, the negative emotions and mood swings that this is putting me through is a nightmare. However, I can see them. I can see the reality that I'm being put in, and that is the nightmare. Coming back and taking into account the first verse and giving it to us what we've been asking for. I would like to point out verse 2 just to emphasize the imagery that this song is putting us through, and also setting up the final remarks of the song and how that is making us feel production wise. We go into brown eyes under blue skies, always reminisce in the moonlight of when you found me on my planet and only took the love I gave for granted. I don't understand the concept of men. I'd wish to never fall in love with his friend if I knew that I might regret the way I feel tonight. Keep this in the back of your head. She brought the description back to a planet. Now, that is something that she is going to do again throughout this project, and it's going to come together to be a bigger point in statement, conspiracy theory, if you will, on my end. However, she does this on multiple projects of comparing her situations to something of a distant planet being put in the distance of something on the back burner of something. Keep that in mind. We're going to get more into that in the context of this project. But if you hear it again in future projects, don't say I didn't tell you. This song, like the last, super short, but still impactful in imagery. I don't need to hold your hand because we already did that in the past song. From the 1 minute and 33-second mark to the 1 minute and 51-second mark, the song transmorgifies into a feeling, and a feeling that makes me feel. It makes me feel. You make me feel so, like I'm in a cemetery. Listen, don't shoot the messenger. It makes me feel like I am in a cemetery similar to how we started off the track with that mysticism, feeling as though we are in a trance, going into that more spooky feeling of being in a cemetery. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It's like those classic moments where you see on a Disney original movie. In fact, imagine if you watched Wizards of Waverly Place whenever Teddy, good luck Charlie, I don't remember her name in Wizards of Waverly Place, was dating Justin and they went on a date in the cemetery. Keep that in the back of your head. That kind of matches the sound that I get from this track, and as it is closing out and we get that moment of silence to really let that production speak for itself, we get that sense along with an organ in the back just going in, giving us those classic horror film genre type of soundtrack in musicality, which brings it back to something being haunted. I know that I'm haunting you. You must be haunting me. And that's exactly what we get during these moments in time of thinking inwardly on what brought us to these moments. And once we get to that 1 minute and 51 second mark and we keep going until we get to the next track, the song goes back into that seance mysticism that we started off with, almost concluding the trance of this moment from going from something that we were overthinking into, no, let's be completely deeper. Let's astral project, if you will. And that brings us into the next song, Note to You. There's history in this song, as we had before, but more importantly, there's history with the feeling, direct ties of you and me in this situation, and not just me thinking about you. And as I continue to dive deeper and ask more questions, I get confronted with a question from herself, stating, "Why you never call me?" Scratch that, don't ever call me. And from that, we get a slew of different emotions and feelings within those two lines. We get that yearning, that longing for resolve in trying to figure out what happened. But in that line, there's also clear hurt in that, in the feelings that were evoked from such a thing of never calling me, not only giving me attention maybe in a bratty way, but just in general, I thought we were both in this. Come on now. I was on the shelf. I put myself in a cage. But you never visited. You never even cared to visit. And just like everything that I alluded to before when listening to this, it really comes into play and reaffirms some of those thoughts and ideas that I shared in a much deeper level from her herself. I mean, she is the scientist at the end of the day. I think she knows what she's doing. In the first verse, we get, "Why you never call me? Please don't ever call me. You left me for a woman in the city of the palm trees. I never knew that it would haunt me." In just those 4 lines, we get the emotions and swings of the source of the neglect, as well as going back into maybe answering that feeling in production from the past track of feeling as though we're in a cemetery. These things are haunting me. They're ghosts of my past. I never knew that finding out about the source of this would truly haunt me. But while that could be answering the previous track, it's also answering the first lines with saying, Why you never call me? You're asking this, but are you ready for the answer? And it sounds like in that moment of feeling what was done to, we weren't quite there because you never knew the long lasting effects that that answer could come with. Before, we were just sitting with the what ifs, what was happening, okay, trying to bridge the pieces together. In fact, try and piece together what we think went down. But when doing that, these are all things that we have already mentally set us up to even think about. But when getting the answer firsthand from this person, that although we loved and shared this, what we thought was an intense bond, when hearing those answers of, yes, I did neglect you, when before we were giving excuses and not holding them accountable, when they are going out of their way to be like, okay, and what? What are you going to do about it? I'm going to be completely honest with you. It almost took everything in my mind to not bring up a Love Island reference, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. And that confrontation could be devastating, bringing us to these intense reactions and moments. Now, an outside question that I feel as though will never get answered and is kind of like an insider, if you will, unless you really want to be in those trenches and be in those deep dives. Now, that would be a true conspiracy, really adjacent to a stalker. Is later on in the lines, in fact, the next line is saying, I heard the verse that you did for Brody. Now, who is Brody? I don't know. What is that verse? I don't know. But that kind of gives us an open ended scenario to what was going on with this other person being an artist as well. And talking about the situation from their lens and saying, that's funny because we don't know what you said, but just guessing off of that line, you're painting yourself out to be this hero, to be this savior, if you will, and putting me in a negative light or some other light that makes yourself better than what you actually were. Why don't I tell my side of the story? And that's exactly what she jokes about. Maybe I should tell my side of the story. And by her asking that question in the present, in reaction to what she heard, this album is in fact doing everything that she manifested. But throughout all these moments of this person putting her through the dirt, putting her through the mud, there are still lines that talk about how, maybe I still have love for you deep down. Maybe, possibly, something is still there. No matter how much I want to deny it, no matter how much I don't want to admit it, I can't lie in the moments where it really gets put to the test. Maybe I still love you. I don't know. And I think that could be riffing off those moments expressed where she was confused by the concept of man. I am confused by your actions right now. Even though it's very clear that you're neglecting me, there's still things and subtleties that you're doing to try and get back at me, keep me in your mind, in your conversations with other people. I don't want to go back to you, but to sit up here and say that even though you put me through the mud, before all of that, there was still something there. And I'm sorry, but I can't forget about the something that was there. And I feel as though you can't either. So maybe if you do call me, I'll pick up. And in those moments, that's where that confusion really comes into, when she's asking and being real with herself by saying, "You know, I used to love you. Maybe I still do, but I put you in my rear view because I could never trust you." That's fundamental. But baby, that's what fear do. I hope it was worth it, and I hope they deserved all the jewelry and the purses. But if I'm never coming home to you, why do I still contemplate picking up the phone when I know you used to dub me? And after that line is being said, from the 58-second mark to the 128-second mark, like I said before, the songs are short, but they are impactful. We sit in silence, almost with hearing and listening to those hard truths that we concluded the song with. Even though we've been put through this hurt, being completely honest with myself, I'm still willing to give you a chance. It may not be as big as coming back into the relationship, but if you call, like I said before, I may pick up. There's something in me that cares enough to extend some type of charity to you, even though you're not worth it. And so we're sitting with that ugly truth. And that brings us to Hotel. I would like to start off the track reading an excerpt of this song, for the reasons that the excerpt of this song is in fact the whole song, because it is what, like I've mentioned before, are using context clues. It's a short song. I'm not gonna hold your hand. I hope you said that. If you didn't, she starts off by saying, "I know it can be 100 reasons, 'cause I just got my feet in and you're all the way out in the deep end. Oh, I tried my best to buy us time and you didn't even notice it. No, you didn't even notice it. Hard to figure out my type when I'm focusing on you." Now, while it's short, it is, of course, painting a picture of what is to come. But what we have right here, starting us off, is, "I know it can be 100 reasons." Now, like I've said time and time again, we are giving it away to rationale and being realistic, but another sense of that could be being detached. When going back to "Why You Never Call Me" in the previous track, we said that even though we're asking this question, we're kind of fearful of the much needed confrontation of the person's point of view. Because when they gave us their honest answer, and in fact validated our sense and feeling that we were neglected, we found out through that there was pain held in that, rightfully so, but there was everlasting pain that came with that, as that answer and the reality of the situation haunted her even outside of everything. After everything is done, after everything is being mucked through in the rubble is still there, having to sit in the wreckage. So let's not be completely detached from this, but we can't blame the fact that that may be a result of a coping mechanism, avoidance. And then throwing up a wall and barrier of saying, "Well, you know, if I'm being realistic, if I'm extending empathy, everybody's story has some truth to it. You know, these things may be these things. And even though I may feel these things, I'd rather think about it with my brain." Now, that could be a stretch. Who knows? And that's why we're here. But as we go along in the song, where she states, "I just got my feet in," but you're already in the deep end. That can be the imagery of stating that, hey, all this stuff happened, but all this stuff happened pretty fast, pretty quickly. We just got in this relationship. We're actually at that moment of feeling ourselves out. And I may not be a trustful person, so we're going to have to take things a little bit slow. But as I'm taking these things slow, I'm seeing that you already are acting comfortable as if we've known each other for years. Maybe they have known each other for years, and moving into the relationship, they feel as though because we've already known each other, I don't have to put on an act up front. I could just be me. But you in the sense of a friendship, and you in the sense of romantic involvement, even though it's the same, there is a difference in how you conduct yourself and look at and treat your partner. So maybe that was happening. But even still, it was them acting as if they are so comfortable, they have all the room to do whatever it is that they want to do, when she is still not only trying to figure you out, hence the excuses that she makes on your behalf, but also trying to figure herself out in tandem to you in the relationship. I'm just starting. And the sense of that song, even though I read it to you pretty briefly, very connected to each other, the song is spaced out, with every line having its own moment and sentiment, having the gap in between of silence, letting it sit in, letting it simmer with every word, line, phrase that she says, dragging out the song, almost acting as the representation of how slow she wanted or was taking the relationship, not out of maybe fear, but simply, I have to get to know you. But you're already over here, and I'm moving like this because we got to get comfortable with each other to get here. Do you see what I'm saying? And so the fact that the song is drug out to that extent, that kind of represents that mistrust that was always there in the first place. But while the mistrust was there, it's also slowing down the pace or trajectory of the relationship as it continues on. Because as the song starts, although each line and phrase gets its own moment of sitting with the listener before it goes on into the next line, as the song keeps going, that gap in space of silence increases. And it keeps going and keeps going, as if the mistrust was always there in the beginning. And it was what was causing this slow pace of getting to know everybody, feeling everybody out, feeling myself out in the relationship. But then as we keep going, and that mistrust that was always there is building on, we're now getting slower and slower and slower, to the point where you're all the way over here. And I'm not even at that halfway mark yet. But on top of me not moving at the same pace as you haven't even bothered to look back and be, hey, why are you all the way over here? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we can, if not move at the same speed, but let me understand you a little bit better so I can reassure you in ways that you probably either never had or you didn't even think to have within this relationship. You see, it's the little things. And as the song goes, she's saying and concluding the song saying, hard to figure out my type when I'm focusing on you, creating all these excuses for you, blaming myself for your faults, your lack of care. I'm doing all these things to protect you. And while I was saying learning myself in the relationship while also learning about you in the relationship, I'm no longer putting myself first, or at least putting myself in a compromise of being about joint, being about the joint communication, the joint priority of us both putting ourselves first. I'm no longer showing up for myself in ways that I should have because I'm focusing on you. But I gotta put me first. I gotta put me first. And because there is no prioritization of herself within this situation, those reasons kind of bring me to wanting to figure out why this song is called Hotel. Now, we already know this song is an interlude based off of the subject matter and how it's present with transitioning into the next chapter. But why, of all things, called Hotel? Now, I wonder this because of the fact that the mistrust was there. In fact, it's hinted throughout the tracks that it was never there in the first place. Where there's trust, there's comfort. Where there's comfort, there is a greater likelihood of staying. If there's no trust, there's no comfort to be in the location that you're in. You're going to feel on edge. You're going to feel like this is not your what? Home. Home is not where the heart is right now. And because of that, because of this lack of foundation, this feels temporary. This feels fleeting. This feels like a hotel. Everything in me is trying to stay. Everything in me is trying to give you a chance. Everything in me is trying to give us this foundation. But I can't give you something that's not there. I can't. No matter what flips and tricks I try and do, I can't give you something that was never there to begin with. And because of that, all this is temporary. A hotel. That's where I'm at on this right here. But if you can figure out why this is a hotel and you have your own theories and build up to it, I would love to hear that. Because this was something that I was really sitting with, because I've always wondered why this song, out of all, while they all have their own unique titles, this one compared to the rest of them felt different. Girl, Hotel Interlude for the next chapter. Also a transitional period. Stay in a hotel. And then you move on. But what also comes with that temporary feeling, if you will, because while we've gotten into the subject matter and we've gotten into the technique of the song, I didn't tell you that much about the production of the song. The song is stripped. There is no instrument. There is no beat. It's just her singing. Everything else is stripped. Lack of foundation. Everything else is stripped and it's just her voice. Well, it's just her voice and a second voice. Now, it could be an echo. However, I don't think so because it's echoing, but it's not an echo. Where she's saying, and I know it could be 100 reasons, there's a distorted voice in the background that's repeating the exact thing, bar for bar, line for line, all the way up into the conclusion of this song. And where we were before, in going deeper and deeper into this trance and coming back out to tell them more about themselves and how I'm feeling, how this made me feel. It could also be I feel defeated in trying to do everything I can, but it's all coming out to be for nothing. And it feels like I'm just talking into a void. I'm talking into the pit of nothing. All these false things that you try to make up to feel comfortable in the situation, they're null and void. Speaking to the fact that this song is letting us know, and a wake up call, if you will, as far as we got to accept what it is and what it isn't. And what it is neglect and a lack of care and a lack of foundation. You couldn't trust this man. There was mistrust. That slowed the pace of this relationship. You asked for signs and I gave it to you every single time. So now we have to sit with this void. We have to sit with this. And you have to know that throughout the journey of going through this album, but also the journey of writing this music, the void will always be there. And that is how Hotel concludes. And that has been chapter 1 of Master by Mariah The Scientist. Let me know if you were rocking with some of my theories, some of my thoughts, the discussions that we made, or if you have some contrasting views of your own. If you want to answer some questions that I posed along the way, you can do that too, because we got to figure this out. Because it is, in fact, upsetting me and my homegirls. But at the end of the day's got to end. And that has been Late Night Music Theory with your host, me. I hope to see y'all again. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter where we go even deeper and come to terms with a lot of the things that we've been facing that we were maybe a little bit scared to confront or get answers to by the person that's causing us this harm and judgment and ridicule. And with that, I'll leave y'all with that one. Bye, y'all.